Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly report of the games I've been playing, and this week I only played the one game. So getting straight into it, it's obviously Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. So I mentioned before that this is my very first Metal Gear Solid experience, and overall I'm actually really impressed with this remake. So this is supposedly a one-to-one remake of the original game back from 2004. And you can tell just by the game's design because they didn't really update it too much. And I know some people have a problem with one-to-one remakes. Some people want, Final Fantasy VII remake and rebirth style of remake where it's kind of reimagined. Yeah, so the basic premise of the story I can tell you is, so you play as a guy named Snake, and his mission is to retrieve this scientist that is a weapon scientist, and he goes to retrieve this guy, but unfortunately, things doesn't go the way he wants, and he loses him, and he actually gets betrayed by the boss, and the boss is basically his mentor that taught him everything he knows, and the boss has other disciples that are aligned with her, and these disciples are bosses that you eventually encounter in the game. And one thing I didn't know about Metal Gear Solid, that there's, I guess, fantasy elements or sci-fi elements in this. So the boss and all of her disciples, they call them the Cobra Squad. They all have powers. Even the main villain of the story, that's Volkov, I think his name is. It's a weird, it's a Russian name. And yeah, he has basically electricity powers. So everyone in this universe has powers. I'm sure if I would have played the first Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2, I would have more context on why these people have powers. But yeah, all these people have different powers. There's a guy that controls bees. There's a guy that camouflages. There's an old man that actually is dying, so he's sleeping most of the time. And whenever he's needed for combat, he wakes up and his eyeball bulges out of his socket, which is disgusting, by the way. And, there's different colorful cast of characters with different powers that is very, unique. And I've never seen anything like this before. And, this is an espionage game. It's a spy game. Think of like 007, but, a little bit different. And the level design is actually pretty good. Every section of the levels are spaced out between loading screens. So there is loading screens in this. They kept that in. And every time you go into one area and then to the next, you actually kind of reset the enemies if you didn't, knock them out or you killed them. And, that's the typical game design from back in 2004. And they kept that here, and actually it felt very refreshing compared to the games that come out today. So that was really fun. And you can actually beat this entire game without killing a single soul. I didn't do that. I went straight to, killing all the enemies and stuff, because, I don't really care for that stuff. And with the option for you to do everything stealthily and not killing a single person, it really adds a lot of replay value. And when you beat the game, you actually get graded on how you did. And given I actually gotten found out many times, so I heard that iconic blee, and I just went guns blazing, especially towards the end, because there is an escort mission towards the end of the game. And that was a little frustrating because once you reach a certain point in that escort mission, the escort you're taking is completely, immobile. They can't move or anything. And the game doesn't tell you how you're supposed to pick them up and drag them to the actual, waypoint where you're supposed to go to get to the next area. So apparently you had to knock them out, which is hilarious because they're like, why are you hitting me? And then you knock them out and you can just carry them, or more like drag them. So that's pretty funny. And there's some hilarious moments in this game with the dialogue, and then just the stuff that you can do. It kind of reminded me of Hitman, if you guys ever played that series. But yeah, Snake is a very likable character. At first I didn't actually care for his voice, but once I got further into the game, the voice grew on me and I actually like the voice actor that played Snake in this. I don't believe it's the original guy from the original game. I think they got a new guy, but he did a good job. Everyone else did a very good job. All their voices felt like they actually are attached to the character. And of course, given this is originally a Kojima game, it has some very sus moments, more like pervy moments. So like Eva, she's like an ally for Snake, and she basically teases him the entirety of the game, where she has, you know, her breasts out, and of course you can zoom in on her breasts, and you know, she kisses. She's all like lovey-dovey with Snake, and he's kind of like awkward and a little bit uncomfortable, but towards the end of the game he actually, you know, accepts her advances, and you know, things like that. Like, I know Kojima is known for that, and it's kind of funny that it's always been a part of his games. And given this is a Kojima game, it's very cinematic. There is a lot of cutscenes that are 10 plus minutes long, and even sometimes 20 minutes long. And I know, like, I was afraid that the cutscenes would be like an hour long, and then it's going to be like 30 minutes of gameplay and then another hour of cutscenes. The game is not like that, thank God. There's plenty of gameplay here, and I really like that. And the biggest controversy that I do want to mention with this game, besides being a one-to-one remake, is the performance. So when I first started the game, when it came out, there was some performance issues that were very noticeable, like stutters and stuff, and even the cutscenes were a little stuttery because it reverted back to 30 frames per second, I think. But since I've been playing it this week, most of the performance issues have been ironed out, and from my perspective, the actual visuals looked, you know, clear enough, because I know that was another thing with the PS5 Pro version, is that it looked a little blurry. It looked pretty clear to me, and it ran a majority of my playthrough just fine. No stutters, no anything like that. The only time that I noticeably saw stutters in the frame rate is during the on rails shooting section towards the end of the game. That's the only time I noticed any frame drops. But other than that, it is a very smooth experience on PS5 Pro as of right now. And if you like espionage games and you want, you know, to play a good stealth game that is very, I guess, in a way similar to Hitman, the most recent Hitman games, you're gonna like this. And as someone that is not particularly good at stealth games, I really enjoyed it, because it gave me the option to go in guns blazing. So you're not forced to actually, you know, be stealth the entire time if you do not want to. And like Hitman, there's many different ways you can tackle the enemies, knock them out, kill them, hide their bodies, different types of equipment that you can get, like the famous box you can hide in. You can find other, you know, pieces of equipment, like, you know, different weapons, different gadgets. You can even get new outfits. And even though this is a very linear game, there's some crevices that you can go to, and you can find these hidden items as well that will be very helpful to you throughout the entirety of the game. And another thing I like to note too that I forgot to mention is this game is actually pretty like deep with how you heal. So you have your stealth bar, and then you have your health bar. So to heal yourself, you actually get ailments and you get hurt and wounded in the game. So you'll actually get like a bullet lodged into your skin, and you have to pull it out with a knife, and then you have to, you know, disinfect it, and then if you need stitches, stitch it up. And you know, you have pretty much like a realistic way on how the process works to clean a wound and everything. This game has that. And so for your stamina to replenish that, you actually have to eat food that you actually get out in the field, like mushrooms and, you know, rats, crabs, tarantulas, snakes, fruit. There's so many options for food, and all of them taste different according to what Snake says when you devour it. And depending on what you eat, there's actually a mini cutscene of Snake eating that food, which is hilarious. And it's just another, you know, added flavor to this entire game. And I can finally see why people like this game in particular so much and this franchise so much. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna go back and play the first one and the second one and then the third one with the Metal Gear Solid collection that they have out. It is possible, but I'm not gonna make any promises. But I really, really liked Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, because you can tell the developers actually cared about the IP and the game in particular. And of course, they credited Hideo Kojima in the credits, and that's very nice. So like I mentioned before, if you like Hitman, you're gonna like this game. If you like espionage or stealth games like Splinter Cell, you're more than likely gonna like this if you haven't bought it already. Now, this game does retail for $70. That's probably the biggest ask for this game, because the game is short, and if you're someone that values their games based on how long they are, I beat this game in under 9 hours. So I didn't do like too much exploring. I just, kind of beelined everything, but I still enjoyed everything I played. But yeah, if that's something you're worried about, then I suggest you wait until this game goes down to at least $40, maybe like 30, in that range. I could recommend the game for that price, but for $70, even though the graphics look incredible, it's still the same 2004 experience. And I do suggest you check it out once it's on sale. Unless you are like a diehard fan of stealth games, then you will find a lot of enjoyment out of this. And of course, you can play it on higher difficulties, get better ranks and stuff once you beat the game. So that is totally up to you. But yeah, I really, really liked Metal Gear Solid Delta. So that was Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. So I actually want to apologize that this video is coming out a lot later than expected. That was because I actually wanted to beat this game today before I did this video. So that's why I held off, and I had to go pick up my copy of Borderlands 4 because that came out today. So you guys should be seeing an unboxing of that today as well. But yeah, like once again, like I do every week, what did you play this week? What are your thoughts on it? Are you picking up Borderlands 4? Because that's out now, and I'm very, very excited to play that. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.